Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fearless Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and today I am very thrilled to welcome on Kate Kayaian, who is a coach for musicians, former cellist, and has a brand new book out for musicians creatives. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Great to be here.
Yeah, I was happy that you reached out. We have a few friends in common, and I was curious about how you said that you were coaching musicians at a mid-level. So I thought that's immediately what attracted me to want to talk to you, because I thought that's very similar to the work we do with the Fearless Artist. So I'd love to hear about you and what is coming up in the book and how you approach this idea of building our careers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the book Beyond Potential just came out a couple weeks ago at the end of March. And
Congrats.
thank you.
I know
Thank
it's
you.
a big
Yeah,
deal.
it is a big deal, actually.
Yeah.
It's like having a child, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But I was a cellist for my entire career. I started, like a lot of us, started playing when I was 4.5, 5 years old, and was very fortunate. Had great teachers, great training, went to great schools, all the right festivals, et cetera, et cetera. And I loved it. But at a certain point mid-career, I started to wonder if there was something more. Something felt like lacking, right? And I was doing great work, right? I was so fortunate. I was getting the right calls from the right people. And I realized that I'd been living my career in default. It was like, whoever called, those were the gigs I did, right? And they were great calls. So I felt really happy and fortunate. But once I was able to kind of take a step back, somebody mentioned my retirement party, like way in the future, like, well, when you retire, like this is what we would celebrate. And this person was not a musician, by the way. So,
Yeah.
my
That's a
first
good
thought,
coaching question. That's
it
a
was a
very,
great coaching question.
yeah.
But she, not being a musician, she was like, you're going to be 65 one day and we will celebrate your retirement, which of course is not how it works in our world. But
No.
so, yeah, when I stopped laughing, I thought about it, and she's talking about like, oh, we're going to, play all of the recordings that, your groups have won Grammys for, and we're going to bring back all of your students to play. And I was like, these aren't the things that matter to me, right?
Yeah. Wow.
These are just the things that I'm doing. If these are the things that I'm doing, why am I doing them? Like, this is my career. This is how my career is going to be defined. So with the retirement party, that really threw everything into question for me. And I was like, well, if the things that I'm doing aren't really the things that matter to me, maybe I should change it up.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I started looking for evidence of other people, like mid-career, like nothing's wrong, no injury, no mental breakdown, no health issues, just switching things up. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find any stories. And I was like, this can't be the way it is. This can't not be allowed, right? Musicians have to be able to just pivot and do whatever they want to do in their career for whatever reason. And I felt so much resistance. And I talked to some friends of like, I think I want to do something else. And they would say, you can't.
Right.
You can't. You're too good. You have to keep doing this. Like, you can't just quit. And I wasn't really talking about quitting at that point, but I was
Wow.
like, no, I think I can. And as soon as I made those decisions to just do it anyway,
Yeah.
and I talk about how to get to that point in the book, of course, but as soon as I made the decision to just sort of do it and announced it publicly and started doing other things, I can't tell you how many calls and emails. I mean, you must get similar calls and emails too, messages of like, I didn't know we could do that. Can you tell me how?
I didn't know
wanna
we could
do that
escape.
too.
There's a way to escape the matrix.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a way to,
nobody
well,
told.
there's a way to get out of that default mode, right?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
my book Beyond Potential does is it breaks it down into 3 parts of like reassessing where you are and what you're doing, then redefining what it is you do want to be doing, and then reigniting everything that you're doing, your career, your life. And it's that third part has really tangible, like, here's what you should do to make this happen.
Wow.
But that first part, the reassessing, that just sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, like, what's going on here? What am I doing? Do I love it? Am I doing it because it's what I want to be doing? Or am I doing it because it's just default? It's
Yeah.
just where I landed.
Yeah. It sounds like part of your message is about giving permission to even consider these questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's first step 1. I give you permission.
So for you, when you assessed where you were at with your career, and you said you're a former cellist. So are you currently playing or you've left it behind?
Yeah, no, I still
Okay.
play cello. I just decided that that was no longer going to be where I got my main income, right?
Okay.
So I play
Okay.
chamber music, I play concerts, I play performances. Usually when people are like, I will give your organization lots of money, but only if you play a house concert
Right.
at my
Got it. Got it.
house.
Got it.
So yeah.
Yeah. You're still
Oh, I was gonna say
performing.
I'm
Yeah.
performing, I'm also conducting. I conducted a lot in Boston, but I not professional groups, mostly student and amateur groups, but I am running the Bermuda Philharmonic, the music director and the president here in Bermuda where I live, which is an amazing group and I love it. And it's nice to have an outlet for my musical experience and knowledge and to
Mhm.
stay in it in that way.
Going back to that question of your, the retirement party, another version of that question is your obituary, right? Which is a little bit more intense. But like, why did that hit you so hard, do you think? If you still kept some performing in your current career now, so obviously not everything was off, let's say, but you just readjusted maybe?
Mhm. Yeah, I was doing a lot of teaching. I was playing a lot of contemporary music. Boston has a
Okay.
huge contemporary music scene, and I was doing a lot of that. And it just, I'm dyslexic.
Okay.
So I realized that I loved my friends, I loved the group, but like learning a lot of contemporary music really quickly really hurt my brain.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably more difficult for me than anybody else. Like, of course I could play it, but just like reading, it was just really difficult. And I was like, I'm not happy doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so part of that first pivot was like, okay, if I don't want to be doing this, I want to be playing the music that I want to play. I want to have more agency over the repertoire that I'm performing and recording and performing, and started doing more recital tours, more solo cello concerts, more concertos. And I thought that that is what would make me happy. And for a while it did.
Okay.
But then I was like, okay, well, that's not quite it, because I don't love having to be on a plane every week and go to a different place. I'm like, I love traveling, right? So I was like, well, this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense. I love traveling and I love playing the cello. So why doesn't this feel right? And then COVID hit, and I was in Bermuda, and I was in a coaching cohort thinking about what my next step was going to be. I knew I wanted to create some sort of program, wasn't sure what it was going to be. And immediately I was like, well, summer festivals are getting canceled. And that sucks for like high school and college age musicians. So I'm going to create an online festival because I know how to teach on Zoom. I know how to I know these students. I know all of the top cello faculty at the conservatories. Like, I've worked in admissions. I just had the right skill set to make that project happen at that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody told me I was nuts. Everybody said it's not going to work. Nobody's going to want it. Nobody likes to teach on Zoom.
Haha. Okay.
Right?
Our lives. I'm just getting flashbacks of
I
traumatic moments.
know. Well, this was, of course, literally like I had this conversation on March 18th,
Oh,
2020, right?
geez.
It was like
Yeah.
right away, and everybody's like, no, everybody hates this whole Zoom idea. Like, don't even start, Kate. And I was like, I think we're gonna have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
The festival ended up being a huge hit, and
Oh,
big success led to some other things and led to colleagues asking me for help to set up similar things.
right.
And in coaching those people, you know, the feeling of being on stage and everything is just going right. And it's just, you feel like you're on fire, and like, in a good way. It's the best feeling in the world, right?
Yeah.
For me, coaching felt even better than that.
Wow.
I felt like I was home. I felt like all of my life experience as a musician, as a creative, everything I had been working on in myself, in my own life, all came together in this world of coaching and writing. And I had a blog at the time, and it just suddenly felt like, yes, this is it. I found
Mhm.
it. I finally found it.
That's so good. Yeah, it's like a little bit similar to the ikigai, which is the Japanese sense
Mhm.
of finding your purpose. And
Was
I do this with our mastermind. What do you love? What are you good at? What can you get paid for? What does the world need? And it sounds like
Yeah.
this hits the center for you. And I mean, I have a
Yeah.
similar thing with the Fearless Artist building this up. And I realized this is the other half of who I'm supposed to be, the pianist and the speaker, the pianist and the coach. And it
Yeah.
just both of those things complement each other. So then you really feel like you have found that groove.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what are some of the things that, besides getting set up for teaching in COVID, what are some of the struggles that your clients are having, or what are people coming to you about?
It's kind of a combination, all sorts of things. Some of them come to me and they say, I want to create this project, whether it's like a workshop or a teaching program. They have an idea for a program or an event in mind, and they want mostly tactical, logistical help, where they come to me thinking they want tactical and logistical help,
Yeah.
which they get. But of course, as you know, you can give somebody like a checklist of like, here are all of the things you need to do in order. Here's the playbook, go make it happen. And they will get stuck from imposter syndrome and resistance and procrastination and all of those stories that they've had in their mind telling them that they can't do it
Mm-hmm.
or that they shouldn't do it. Right.
Right.
And that's part of the first part of my book, the reassessing, is looking at those old stories of what has been holding you back and what are those beliefs that are just sort of hidden under the surface of like, you're not allowed to do that. Like if you're a freelancer or a teacher, like you're not allowed to go play concertos
Right.
for other people to do.
Right.
No, go do it. Do what you want,
Yeah.
right? So getting people past those mental hurdles in order to create those projects. And other people come to me and they just say, I don't know, something's just not right. Help me
Mm-hmm.
figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we dig through and we figure that out. So
I mean,
it's yeah,
even your own friends were telling you, no, you're not allowed to go be a coach. You need to be a cellist because you've put in your 10,000 hours and you've proven yourself and you've got the accolades, and we're going to talk about it at your retirement party. It's like other people like to kind of put you in this box,
right.
how
Yeah.
they see you, where you fit. It makes sense to them. And we embrace that. We're like, yes, this is where I belong. This is what I should be doing.
Yeah. And, I will be perfectly honest. Some of my friendships really suffered from it. Some of them just, for whatever reason, they felt a little threatened by that.
Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah.
99% of them were like, that's so cool what you're doing and tell me
Right.
more. And yeah.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about the impact. Like, do you have any client stories that have stuck with you, or people like the moment you see the lights flip on in someone?
Yeah.
I love those moments.
Oh yeah. One thing I talk about in the book and in my speaking is the 5 levels of internal growth. Like the things
Okay.
that happen before you see the outward success, right?
Yeah.
And those are taking a sense of responsibility for your life, changing your attitude of like, yes, I can do it, to yes, I can do this, I can make this happen. And one of those things, the final thing, is identity. When your sense of identity shifts.
Yeah.
And I had a client who, similar to what I was just saying, she's a freelancer in a big city, and she doesn't have the top gigs, but she's got gigs and she's doing really well, and she wants to do a solo project that she's putting together, and she's had a lot of resistance to that, like, well, I'm not a soloist, people don't see me as a soloist, so who am I to be doing this project?
Yeah.
And through one thing and another, and she's really worked on all of that together and on her own, and she just was given some opportunities as to be a soloist.
Fantastic.
And I said, how do you feel about that? She's like, I feel great because I'm a soloist.
Yeah. Ooh.
And
Identity
it was
shift,
like
you're saying.
that major identity shift of like, this is who I am and this is what I do.
Can we just hang out here a little bit? Because I've had, I
Yeah.
think, 3 people in the mastermind tell me, who am I to be talking about this? Who am I to start this summer festival? I know there's someone else who does a summer festival. What are people going to say about me if I try and step out of this? Like, how do you help someone who's in that place?
That's a great question. It's because as coaches, as you know, like, it's not our job to just say, yes, you are a soloist. You can be a soloist if you want to, right?
Right.
So,
Just believe and close your eyes and hope. Yeah.
click your heels together 3 times. It's really getting them to ask themselves the right questions, right? So who told you that you can't be a soloist?
Yeah.
Why is it you think you can't be a soloist? Has anybody ever said that you shouldn't be a soloist? And often they come back with like, well, kind of because I never won the concerto competition in school.
Yes.
Or Yeah, because when this big famous teacher came to town, my teacher could only choose 3 people to play in the master class, and they didn't choose me,
Yeah.
right? And so, unfortunately, as a student, it is kind of a zero-sum game,
Mhm.
right? There's only 1 concerto competition winner. That doesn't mean that there aren't 5 people who could play a concerto with an orchestra, who play well enough to play their concerto with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I know this deeply because I started and I run a concerto competition for students
Oh.
here in Bermuda,
Oh, great.
and it is both something that I am so proud of and devastates me every year because I always wanna give multiple spots, right?
Right. Right.
And only 1 student gets to play with the orchestra. Um, but I do tell them that. Like, this is a bizarre situation where we can only choose 1. It doesn't mean that more of you aren't worthy of this.
Qualified. Yeah.
Yeah, qualified to play a concerto with an orchestra. It's just that we chose 1. And I think that people forget that when we become adults and we get into the professional world, there isn't just 1 winner. And just because we weren't chosen when we were 13 doesn't mean we can't do it when we're 23.
So you're digging with them to help uncover these deep-seated beliefs that might have come in from a mentor or a teacher or
Mhm.
somebody who says, who do you think you are? You're not that person, or.
Or even just a perception of it,
Yeah.
right? Because, I think the vast majority of teachers are trying to support their students the best they can. Nobody is trying to tell them they aren't capable of anything, right? But just by the choices that the student sees being made, they could create that story of I'm not good enough to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so reassessing those old stories. People talk a lot about habit change and being more productive and changing up your behaviors, and people get all excited, January 1st, like, yeah, new start, new year, new me. And I think that it's really difficult to just make those changes in our habits without reassessing why we were doing those behaviors in the first place,
Right.
right? And I was talking to a client just yesterday, and he was talking about some changes. He's like, I don't know, this spring energy. I'm ready to do these things now. And then he said he was talking about some goals and some habits that he wanted to put in place. And he said, but I'm kind of worried that in changing my habits, he's like, am I just changing who I am? And one of the things he was talking about was like getting up earlier. And he's like,
Mhm.
I'm 51. Like, I just like to sleep in.
Yeah. Like,
And
should
I'm
we just
like,
accept it at this
should
point?
we
Yeah.
just accept it? And I said,
Yeah.
well, why did you start sleeping in? Like,
Yeah.
at what point? And he was like, well, yeah, he was a stay-at-home dad, and he would like get up early with the kids, and then he would like go back to sleep. He would just hang out. And I was like, sometimes our habits, actually always, I think our habits are determined by the stories that we're telling ourselves. Right. So if
Mhm.
he's telling himself the story of like, or living the story of like, well, kids are gone for the day. I don't have anything to do right now. I can go back to sleep. I can just sleep.
Yeah.
Well, his kids are in college now. Like, he's outgrown that story. He's outgrown that situation.
Mhm.
So it might not be that he's just the kind of person who sleeps in, that that's just him.
Right.
That's just, it was a habit that he formed earlier on in a different stage of his life that he has now outgrown.
Right.
Right. So, back to the how do you help a client through this moment of
That's really
reassessing
interesting.
those
Yeah.
stories and then seeing how they've outgrown those stories,
Yeah.
how things maybe have changed for them of like, okay, yeah, that's true that when you were a teenager, you didn't win, or even in college, like you didn't win the concerto competition. You weren't the one person chosen, but how have things shifted now that you're an adult and a professional?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very profound actually, because we act based on how we believe. So if you
Mhm.
have like, formed these beliefs, form your habits like you're saying, and then the story or changes or your circumstances change, but how we've acted, we just stick with what we know. It's familiar.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, here's something that might be familiar to a lot of your listeners. I, in college and as a freelancer, would get up really early to get my practicing done, and then would have rehearsals all day, teach all afternoon, have concerts until late at night. Sometimes, I lived in Boston for 20 years. Sometimes my concerts were in Providence, Rhode Island, or Portland, Maine. And so I'd drive home and get home at midnight and then get up really early the next morning and start it all over again. I basically lived on coffee,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I just
Yes.
drank coffee all day long. I needed coffee
Yeah.
as soon as I woke up just to open my eyes. I needed coffee to get through my teaching day, my rehearsals. Certainly coffee before a concert, or else I was going
Yes.
to fall asleep
Yeah.
on stage, and then
Yeah.
coffee to drive home.
Yeah.
And
Sounds very familiar.
right, I think this is something a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah.
But it was just a few years ago that, I found myself, we were making, tons of coffee every day. And I realized my husband doesn't drink that much coffee. I was drinking all of the coffee. I was like, you know what? I I still get up early. But like, I live in Bermuda. I have a pretty nice life. Like, I work
Mhm.
from home. Everything's 5 minutes away. It's very low stress. I really don't need to be drinking this much coffee. It was a habit. It wasn't a need. It wasn't an addiction because I can just stop. I don't even get headaches, right? It was just a habit dictated by a story that I had long outgrown and just hadn't realized it yet.
Yeah, that's really good to recognize behaviors are we choosing and how does it serve us to continue to choose these behaviors. I think a lot of times we don't realize that we're even choosing this,
Yeah.
which actually ties in very well to you saying life on default. And that's
Mhm.
what your book is about, is getting out of this default.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, here I have a coffee right here, but it's like this might be one of two instead of one of 12 cups of coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, behavior change. It's possible. It's
Yeah.
possible to change. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about the third section of your book and how you're empowering people to get out of default and to really, I mean, I love this so much. You are 100% responsible for your life. I learned that from Jack
Mhm.
Canfield. I read a ton of his motivational,
Oh,
encouraging
yeah.
stuff. He's a big vision board guy.
Mhm.
He's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, if anyone's listening and they know those books. And I love his story of how he built this huge business just by really visualizing and doing the numbers game, knocking on the doors, getting the no's, and the persistence. And I think there's a lot to learn from that. So that was big. I think I'm still learning this lesson. Like, you're not a victim. And
No.
musicians often can act like being victims. Like, oh, we've been told that we are this thing. We've been told we're not good enough. We
Mhm.
don't know how to build a business. We don't know how to post on Instagram. So anyway, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, just to back up a second, the second part of the book is redefining what it is you want, right? So then we set some goals, put some things in place of like, this is what I want. At the heart of the book is really the story of, or this question that, let's say you go to heaven, and instead of meeting St. Peter at the pearly gates, you meet the version of yourself that lived your ideal life,
Ugh, I don't want to think about this.
right?
That's painful.
And that is everybody's reaction. Everybody's reaction that I've mentioned that to. They're like, "Oh no, that's cruel." Right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
really stopping in part 2 to be like, "Okay, well, what did that person do? What trips did they take that I'm not taking? What things did they do in their career?" When I did this exercise, when I heard this for the first time and I questioned it for myself, I realized what that person didn't do in their
Mm.
career. All of the things that I thought that I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I have this goal and I want to do that. And they were like, no, they didn't do it. They were perfectly happy. They did these other cool things.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. So once we have an idea of what those things are and what the gap is,
Yeah.
where are we now? What are the things we truly want to do?
Yeah.
Part 3 is reigniting it. And part of that, the sense of responsibility and the sense, and I talked about the second level of internal growth is an attitude shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that is taking things from like, no, I can't do this because, a no because mentality, and changing that into a yes if mentality.
Okay.
And circling back to what you were just talking about, like the victim mentality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of musicians say, no, I can't do that because so and so is in my way.
Right.
No, I can't get a job because I'm over the age of 22.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No, I can't win this competition because, I mean, sometimes, yes, a competition might have like an upper age limit of 30 or 35. And if you're 36, you can't enter. Okay. Those things notwithstanding, you can't just go to the New York Phil and say like, hello, I'd like to be your principal cellist, please. But barring those things, we do often play victim, have that victim mentality, and taking it from a like, okay, let's see an example of, no, I can't I can't start a festival because I don't have DMA, or I am not affiliated with a major conservatory. I mean, the things that people come up with are wild, right? You're just like, what does that have to do with anything?
Right.
But that's a story they have told themselves. I cannot do this because of this.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but like they see someone else who's done the festival who had the DMA. So then they're like, oh, in order to do that thing, I have to have that qualification and I don't. So therefore I'm
Yes,
out. Yeah.
exactly. Or they see a job description, and of the 6 things listed in the job description, they have experience doing 4 of them, but not the last 2. So they'll say, well, I can't apply for that job because I don't have experience doing those last 2 things, right?
Right.
Instead, so what I'm saying is choose the yes if
Yeah.
mentality, which is like, yes, I can apply for that job. Yes, I can do that job if I learn those 2 skills.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll help me learn those 2 skills. Maybe those 2 skills I could learn on the job. Maybe those 2 things are like, maybe it's like experience with Excel. I don't know. Like you could learn that in a weekend, right? Like
Right.
you can do it before you apply before you have your first interview. So some of the things are really silly that we let allow to hold us back from something that we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really great way to get yourself out of victim mode of find the yes if. And honestly, it could be like, hey, could I start this I want to start a music school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because I don't have any money. I don't have a place. I don't have, okay.
No,
yes,
because.
yes, if I was able to raise $100 million and get a world-class faculty on board with this. Well, maybe you don't have $100 million right now. Maybe you don't know how to raise $100 million, but that's a really good starting point, because I can tell you, like, lots of people have raised $100 million before. It's possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you could start asking yourself, how could I raise $100 million? So that becomes the new question. Can I raise $100 million? No, because I don't have fundraising experience. Yes, if I collaborated with a fundraising expert. Yes, if I got some help. Yes, if I got support from X, Y, and Z.
That's actually such a great way to reframe thoughts. No, because to yes, if. I love that.
Yeah. It works magic. Works magic.
I'm going to be taking this one away with me. That's really good. I'm already thinking of how I need to apply this to my own life. So this is very helpful. So
I do it all the time.
Yeah. No, because I mean, we got to be ruthless in catching ourselves in this victim mentality, and I see it so many times. I coach so many musicians. I hear the same patterns and problems over and over. And then I have to look in the mirror and say, hang on a second. I'm responsible. I have to show up.
Yeah.
And you know what? I do show up. I'm so consistent, but it's also familiar to me now. It's easy for me to go talk on Instagram, which is something that other people might really struggle with. So I have to push myself in the ways that I get uncomfortable, So that's it's always a little, a mirror. There's a mirror held up. So this is good.
Oh, that's one of my favorite things, by the way, is when people say, well, I can't do this because, or like, okay, Kate, yes, I know I need to do that. I need to go like do a face to camera on Instagram, but like, I'm just not feeling quite confident yet. Like maybe I think next week. Okay. So not having done it yet, next week you'll suddenly feel more confident. So my thing is like courage before confidence, right? You have to just say, I do not feel confident. I do not know what I'm doing. This feels horrible, but I'm going to be brave. I'm going to show some courage, and I'm going to do it anyway. And then it's terrifying and you do it, and like the world doesn't end.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not great. Maybe you delete it. Maybe it's so bad you hate it so much you delete it, but then maybe you try again. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it was still painful, but you did it. It was a little better and you left it up. Okay. And then you do it a third time and people start to give you some positive comments, right?
Yes.
Or even if they don't give particularly positive comments, at least nobody's giving you negative comments. And slowly but surely, you build the confidence to do it. So like you're at the point where you're like, okay, I've done this 1,000 times and the world still hasn't ended. So I guess it's not a big deal, right?
Right.
You can just show up and do it. And in helping my clients take that first courageous step and the second courageous step and help them and encourage them to keep flexing that courage muscle until it feels confident and easy. I have a a client who would send every draft of every email that they were going to send to somebody to me on Voxer, just like a
Ooh.
screenshot. And, I would just talk through it. Like, is this what you want to say? Is this what you're optimizing for? And like slowly to the point of like, just saying everything you want it to say. Yes. Okay. Send. And now like, I'll be like, did you
Yeah.
send those emails? Like, oh yeah, I sent them last week. Okay.
Oh, that's
Right.
great.
So they build the confidence, and our jobs as a coach is not to be a crutch, but to be a cheerleader and a support to them and help them get to the point where they don't need us anymore.
Yeah, to empower. I love that you're saying
Mhm.
that. I mean, I had to learn sales DMs, and that was really hard for me
Mhm.
because coming from a musician, you don't want to sell, you don't want to, who am I, like this thing, and you don't want to be pushy, you don't want to make people feel awkward and all this
Mhm.
stuff. And it's like enough. So my coach, she just helped me over and over and over. Like, how can I say this in a way that feels authentic and
Yeah.
genuine? And I'm serving and I'm helping people and I'm looking at the
Mhm.
impact that I'm making and totally shifting how I'm talking about what we can do for people to the point now where
Mhm.
I'm like telling them, you need to come into the membership because I can help you do XYZ. And then you're going to get more students and you're going to get more concerts and you're going to feel supported. And I actually don't care about the 37 euros a month that they're going to give me. I care
Right.
about seeing them be transformed and go be fearless. And
Absolutely.
that's been so awesome to see this shift. And I mean, I was listening to your earlier podcast about like giving people different areas. Like we're so trained in musicianship, but then
Mhm.
applying these skills to other areas, like you
Yeah.
said, you have other skill sets, you have admin skills that helped you build your online festival. I mean, we
Mhm.
have to apply these concepts in multiple areas of our life.
Yeah. I was doing some teaching at a private school in Boston, and it was like a little string orchestra when I came in. And the headmaster said at one point, like, what do you think is possible? Like, we want to stay competitive. Like, as a music teacher, like, what do you think is possible? What do we need? And I said, well, to really stay competitive, the one thing that the other private schools, our competitor schools, don't have is a full symphony orchestra. And he laughed and he was like, yeah, well, with the size of our student body, and like we're mostly like an athletes and an academic school, like we're not known for our arts sector. And I was like, well, really smart students tend to also be really good musicians. And
Mm,
if they're really good at two things, they're probably good at sports too. So, like, let me
yep.
try. That was a challenge. So I built it to a full symphony orchestra, right?
Wow. Very cool.
And in order to do that, right, in order to find enough students to come into the school, I was digging into those admissions files every spring, every winter and spring, to the point where the admissions director was just like, oh my God, like you basically live here. Would you like an office?
Here's the key.
Here's the
Here's the
key.
coffee machine.
Yeah, I was standing next to her. We'd become friends at that point just because I was like basically in her office every day. She was standing next to me at graduation, and they, have the students graduating with distinction and then high distinction and highest distinction. And, when they were all standing up, I looked at her and I said, oh, look, it's my orchestra.
Oh, that's
And
good.
her jaw just dropped. And she was like, oh, we need more of those.
Wow.
So they schemed and they offered me like a small position in admission as an admissions officer. So I literally did
Wow.
have an office in admissions. And before they, I said, yes, I'm interested. And the headmaster called me in and he was like, Kate, you are a professional cellist. You are very busy as it is. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to work in admissions? It does not make any sense to me.
Mm.
And I said, Bob, I'm not going to be like, someday I will have to stop playing. And I'm imagining like I'm 70, 75 years
Yeah,
old. Like
for
I'll have to
sure.
stop playing. I said, but maybe I would like to like run a music school or run a program or something for musicians. I feel like having some experience in admissions would be helpful then.
Mm-hmm.
So here I was 30 and I'm thinking 40 years in the
Right.
future,
Right.
I'm going to want to have had this experience.
Yeah.
And he was like, huh, okay. And then it was, far sooner than that I was like, I knew the software to use. I knew the numbers to go with of, in terms of how many I accepted and what was his standard yield number. I knew all that stuff from my time in admissions, and it served me really well. So yeah,
Wow.
musicians out there, you all have other skills. You all
Yeah.
like stop hiding them. Use them. They are your secret sauce.
Yeah. And if you don't have them, then figure out how to get them. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, yes, yes, if.
Yes, if I learn how to do this, great. Yeah.
So what's one of the most highlights for you in writing this book with the whole process that it's come out, it's done, it's in your hands? Do you want to show it to us? This will be on YouTube, so we'll get a good shot.
Oh yeah. She's so pretty.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful
It's so
color.
good. Yeah, I'm so happy. I did independent publishing, but I worked with a really professional team. So everything about it just looks amazing. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But what I love most about having gone through the process of writing the book is, as a coach, that everybody comes to you with a slightly different situation. And every client is unique. And every time it's what I love about one-on-one coaching is that I can really get in there with them and help them through their process. But I knew that there were so many similarities. I was talking about similar concepts over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it on my blog, on my podcast. And writing this book was a really great way for me to just kind of boil it down to the essence of like, what is it that's happening here? Right. And what the issues that were coming up were from these old stories that were just embedded and ingrained in our lives that we needed to reassess, and that it was never too soon and never too late to redefine what it is we want to be going for. And of course that can shift with time, right? Priorities shift, right? So I talk about this book with graduate students, right, at conservatories and art schools, and they haven't even started their career, but this is still a good time to define what they want to do, and not what their teachers are telling them they should do, right? And then giving them the tools that I talk about all the time after time, like here's what you do, and time management skills, and thinking through the right kind of work to do. I talk about needle moving tasks versus rocking chair tasks. Have you heard that term, rocking chair tasks?
I don't know rocking chair. I know needle movers, but
rocking chair tasks are, let's see, like I'm sure you've had the client that will come to you after a week or 2 weeks and say like, well, I haven't done any of those things that you wanted me to do, but I think I've got like, I found a logo. I created a logo.
Right. Got it. So something to pass the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Here's an example. I say you can do things, you can move the needle in big ways or little ways. So if I say, okay, like if you're gonna make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in 5 steps, tell me how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich in 5 steps, right? It would be like, take out the ingredients, put peanut butter on one bread and jelly on one side. Sorry for your European audiences. I know peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are gross, but we love them in the US. Okay. And then put the 2 pieces of bread together and cut it in half. Right. Okay.
Yes.
And then I say, okay, sometimes we want to take baby steps in our process. So explain how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in 100 steps. Name the first 5. If it's going to be 100 steps, Michelle, tell me the first 5.
Oh, geez. Take the bag off the shelf. Open, untwist the twist tie. Open the plastic bag. Take out the bread. I don't know. I'm probably too far ahead in my process.
No, it's great. It's great, right? But here's the thing: whether you do it in 5 steps, 5 big steps, or 100 little steps, at the end of both, you will have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right? A rocking chair task would be going online and researching the best, most organic peanut butter.
Right.
Going on YouTube and watching videos of people make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Doing more research on the best sourdough bread recipe.
Yes.
Right? So those things, which might be interesting. And sometimes in our projects, we do need to do some research. It's fun to watch YouTube videos and see what else is out there. It's great to take in some content to get inspiration. But those things aren't going to give us a finished product. Right. So it's called a rocking chair task because you feel like you're in motion, like you feel like you're working on the task, but you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. So I think that's a great metaphor to apply to so many things. Like what you're saying, you want to start posting content. So you scroll and scroll and scroll and watch everyone else's posts. And then at the end of the day, you haven't put anything out there.
Right. And so you tell yourself, oh, I'm engaging So like, to help the algorithm, or I'm just gaining inspiration, or I'm doing research on what reels are more popular. Like, yeah, you're doing things, but you didn't post. Like, if that's the end goal, you did not put something out there.
Yeah.
So just having an awareness of it. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a rocking chair task. I'm going to allow myself to do this for 10 more minutes, and then I got to get something done.
Oof.
Right?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, I love this. There's been so much gold here. Kate, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the book or how people can find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, katekayaian.com, and that has everything, links to the book, the podcast, my social media. Come follow me on Instagram. That is where I hang out all day. I love chatting with new friends online on DMs. And you can grab my quarterly retreat planning guide. I am a big believer in looking at our lives in like 90-day chunks or small chunks. You can divide it up however you want, but I have this great planning guide that you can take and sit down and go through, and it will help you plan things out and organize things and create new things and optimize what you're already doing. And we'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
I love that.
awesome.
No,
Awesome.
thank you so much. It's been great to have you on. And I'd love to ask you also an action point. Like, what's something that everybody listening can go do today because of what they learned today on the show?
Yeah, I think take a look at some of the habits that that maybe you want to shift, maybe one habit, and just ask yourself what story that stems from. What story have you been telling yourself or living according to that is causing you to do that habit? And how do you want to redefine that story? How do you want to rewrite that story, and therefore give yourself an opportunity to change the habit in a really easy, healthy way? I think you can all do that today, and I would love to hear how that works out for you. And yeah, tell me about it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's great. And then
Yeah, give me a
ultimately,
shout
they'll
out.
change what they say about you at your retirement party. If you change
Yeah,
the story today, then your retirement party will look different. So
that's
that's good.
right. That's right.
Whew.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been convicting. I'm gonna go practice.
Awesome.
Kate, thanks
Awesome.
for your time. Good luck with the book promotion. We'll be following.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Great to be here. Thank
Yes,
you.
enjoy your day. Okay, everybody,
too.
thanks for listening. Make sure you screenshot this and share it to your stories, and we'll see you on the next episode. Be
Absolutely.
fearless.